Chosen one, are you exhausted from holding on to a promise that feels like it will never arrive? Have you been crying out in prayer for years, only to be met with what feels like silence? Do you lie awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, haunted by the ticking clock, wondering if you've somehow missed your moment? Let me tell you something powerful. You didn't stumble across this message. This message found you. Whether you're sitting alone in a quiet kitchen with your morning coffee, or lying in bed in the deep hush of the night, weighed down by thoughts too heavy to share, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not here by accident. Right now, the heavens have paused, the angels are leaning in, and your name has been whispered in the courts of heaven. What I'm about to share with you has been hidden in the secret place reserved for this exact moment in time. The 11th of July 2025 is not just a random date on a page, it's a spiritual threshold, a divine doorway designed specifically for God's chosen ones to step into their ultimate assignment. And beloved, if your eyes and ears have been drawn to these words, that means you are one of them. But listen closely, because this is what breaks my heart. If you miss this moment, if you scroll past this message thinking it's just another video, something deep inside you may never fully awaken. The door opening right now will not remain open forever. Even as I speak, I can sense it in my spirit. Someone listening right now feels a sudden rush in their chest, a warmth washing over them. You feel it, don't you? That tingling, that holy trembling. That's not just an emotional reaction. That's heaven confirming, this is for you. Before we go any further, I need to pause and speak from my heart to every single one of you who has supported this mission through super thanks. Thank you. Your generosity isn't just financial, it's spiritual. You're helping to carry this light to chosen ones all over the world who feel isolated, overlooked and forgotten. And whether you give or not, please hear me. I am deeply, genuinely grateful for your presence, your attention, your faithfulness. You matter more than you can imagine. If these words are already resonating deep in your soul, if you feel the embers in your spirit begin to glow, I want you to do two things right now. First, hit that like button, not just to support this message, but as a signal to heaven that you're here, that you're listening. Second, and most important, if even the faintest whisper in your heart is saying, "This is for me," I need you to comment 99 mine below. That's not just a comment, that's your covenant. That's you declaring to heaven, I am ready, I am available, I receive. The 11th of July 2025, remember that date, mark it, write it on your mirror, your journal, your heart. Because what is about to unfold will shift the trajectory of your entire life. The waiting is almost over. The silence is about to break. You've been chosen for such a time as this. And now, beloved, it's time to tell you everything. God's chosen ones, July 11th, 2025. It's time to tell you everything. Have you ever found yourself asking why your life feels like a series of uphill battles, while others glide along as if they're floating on air? Why does every small victory you finally claim seem to come at a price so heavy it would have crushed someone else? Why have you always felt different, misunderstood, even when surrounded by people who claim to know and love you? You, chosen one, were never meant to fit in. Have you ever paused to consider that the very loneliness you feel in a crowded room might be evidence of your divine distinction rather than a flaw? Could it be that the weight you've carried was assigned to you because God trusted only you to bear it? Listen closely, because this message is not for the casual listener. It's for you, the one who has spent decades watching life pass by, wondering if somehow you missed your moment. Maybe you've lived 70, 80, even 90 years on this earth and felt a silent question echo in your soul. Did I fail you, God? Did I let time slip through my fingers while others soared? You've watched young people sprint ahead, posting their highlight reels, while you sat in the quiet of your living room, the doctor's waiting room, or a funeral home, questioning if your best days are behind you. But let me ask you this. What if every tear you shed on a lonely night, every heartbreak that shattered your spirit, every loss that felt like the end, what if none of it was a punishment? What if it was all divine preparation? Psalm 139:16 says, "Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Before your mother even felt you stir in her womb. Before your father chose your name, God had already set your story in motion." Doesn't that make you wonder what chapters he wrote that you haven't lived yet? What if you're just now arriving at the page marked the beginning of everything? You sense that quickening in your chest right now, don't you? That is not mere emotion, it's your spirit leaping at the sound of truth. You've spent years, maybe decades, surviving, convincing yourself that dreaming is reserved for the young or the unscarred. You told yourself God's grand assignments were for the flawless, the favored, the ones with spotless resumes. But tell me, chosen one, who told you that your mistakes disqualified you? Was it God or your own fear? Look at Moses. He was 80 years old, an age many today would consider done, relegated to retirement communities and forgotten dreams. Yet God chose him precisely then to lead his people out of bondage. Could it be that your age is not a limitation but a divine strategy? What if every wrinkle is a map of wisdom, every grey hair a crown of experience? Sarah was 90 when she bore Isaac, the child of promise. 90. She laughed at God's words because they seemed impossible. But Romans 4:21 reminds us, being fully persuaded that God had power to do what he had promised. Have you laughed at your own destiny because it felt too big, too delayed, too unlikely? Think of Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years. Society wrote him off as a forgotten man, yet he emerged to lead a nation and become a global symbol of resilience and forgiveness. Would he have carried such an anointing without the prison walls that refined his spirit? Or consider Oprah Winfrey, who was told she was unfit for television. Imagine if she had believed those lies. Her setbacks became the soil for her divine assignment, and today millions draw strength from her story. Or what about Colonel Sanders? He started KFC at age 65 after countless failures and rejections. The world might have labeled him too old to dream, but God had a plan that would touch nations through a simple recipe. And think of Grandma Moses, who began painting at 78 and became one of America's most beloved folk artists. Did she miss her timing, or did she simply bloom in God's perfect season? Isaiah 46:4 assures us, "Even to your old age and grey hairs, I am he who will sustain you." Does that verse stir something in you? Could it be that God kept you hidden all these years, preserving you for a generation that needs the raw, unfiltered truth only you can deliver? You've been telling yourself you're too tired, too old, too flawed. But what if your lived pain is the very qualification God needed? What if your scars are not proof of defeat, but evidence of survival, of divine protection, of a story that refuses to end in ashes? Hebrews 10:35 declares, "So do not throw away your confidence, it will be richly rewarded." Will you dare to believe that the reward is still coming? Somewhere tonight, chosen one, a young soul is sitting in a dimly lit room, tears staining their face, utterly convinced that they'll never rise above the darkness pressing down on them. They feel trapped, forgotten, unworthy of love or purpose. Do you realize that they don't need another Instagram highlight reel or a polished motivational speech? They need your story. They need to hear from someone who has staggered through fire and emerged not just alive, but praising God even louder than before. They don't need to see perfection. They need living proof that God is faithful, that his promises are not fairy tales but unshakable truths forged in suffering and victory. Could it be that your scars are the very light someone else is waiting to see? The enemy has been working overtime to keep you silent, to make you believe that your trials were signs of divine abandonment instead of divine preparation. But let me ask you, when those bills came and there was no way to pay, and yet somehow the lights stayed on, was that luck? When your marriage was hanging by a thread and somehow grace pulled it back from the brink, was that coincidence? When the doctor gave you a prognosis meant to crush your spirit, but instead you found new strength rising in your bones, was that random? No, that was training, chosen one. That was God chiseling away everything that wasn't necessary, so only the purest version of you would remain. James 1:12 reminds us, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." Isn't it astonishing to realize that all those nights when you wept into your pillow, heaven was forging a crown uniquely shaped for you? You've been in divine boot camp, preparing not for an easy life, but for a life that would shake others free from their chains. God has been setting the stage for July 11th, 2025. Not because the sky will split open or the earth will crack beneath our feet, but because your long season of silence will finally be over. Have you wondered why you always felt like you were waiting for something more? even when everyone else told you to settle down, to be realistic? What if that restless ache in your spirit wasn't impatience, but a prophetic pulse for this appointed hour? What if every no and every closed door wasn't a rejection, but a divine redirection toward a moment where your voice would carry more power than you ever imagined? Think about Abraham. He was 75 when God told him to leave everything familiar and step into an unknown future, Genesis 12:4. Or Anna, the prophetess who spent decades worshipping in the temple and was 84 when she recognized Jesus as the Messiah, Luke 2:36-38. And consider Sarah, who carried laughter in her old age when she bore Isaac at 90. Even Moses, who began leading Israel at 80. Have you noticed a pattern here? Age was never a barrier to God. It was often his stage for the greatest revelations. Can you see that your timeline has always been under divine authorship? Look at Nelson Mandela again, 71, when he became president after 27 years in prison. His story didn't end in captivity, it began anew from it. Or remember Laura Ingalls Wilder, who published her first Little House book at 65, transforming generations with her storytelling. Think of Vera Wang, who entered fashion design at 40 and became an icon in her later years. Even Morgan Freeman didn't receive his breakout film role until he was 50. These are not just random coincidences, they're echoes of a divine pattern that age refines, not confines. Isaiah 40:31 declares, "But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength, they shall mount up with wings like eagles." Do you feel your wings starting to tremble, ready to stretch and take flight again? The aches in your spirit aren't decay, they're contractions before a spiritual birth. Every funeral you attended taught you about eternity. Every broken dream taught you resurrection. Every lonely season whispered secrets of divine timing. You thought these were signs of decline, but they were your ordination papers in heaven's kingdom. Chosen one, that heartbeat pounding in your chest right now, that's not anxiety, it's the call. It's the ancient purpose God planted inside you before the foundations of the world. Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Could it be that everything you've endured was preparing you for works that no one else can fulfill but you? If you feel the urgency rising inside you, I challenge you, stop this video, grab a pen and write today's date. Mark it as the day your spirit stood up and shouted, "I remember who I am." Mark it as the day you chose to step beyond excuses, beyond the lies that said your moment had passed. Can you feel it, that electric shift in your bones? That's the sound of destiny awakening. Because what I'm about to reveal next will rip apart every excuse you've ever used to hide behind age, shame, or perceived inadequacy. It will show you that you were never too old, too broken, or too ordinary to change the course of a generation. The real question isn't whether God is ready to use you, He's been waiting. The question is, are you ready to finally step forward and speak? Are you ready to stop hiding behind your history and start writing His story through your life? Chosen one, lean in closer right now, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another encouraging phrase, it's a revelation that will shake the very foundation of your soul. Before the enemy laid a single finger on your health, before he disrupted your family, before he touched your finances, he had already seen the blazing potential God had hidden inside you. Why do you think he came so hard for you? It wasn't because you were weak or easy prey. It was because he saw the explosive purpose you carry, a divine assignment that terrified him from the moment you took your first breath. Have you ever wondered why your battles have been so fierce and unrelenting? Do you really believe that heart attack at 62 was just a random event? That losing your spouse or watching your children wander off the path was just an unfortunate series of accidents? No, beloved. Those weren't coincidences. The enemy knew that if you ever fully stepped into the authority God gave you, his kingdom would shake. So he unleashed every weapon in his arsenal to try and break you before you realized who you truly are. Revelation 12:11 says, "They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony." Do you realize that your survival alone is already a weapon? You are living proof that hell failed. Look at Job. In Job 1:8, God himself said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job?" Imagine that. God spotlighted Job as someone strong enough to withstand hell's fury. Job lost everything, his health, his wealth, his children. But every attack only purified his faith, turning him into a vessel of unwavering devotion. Have you ever considered that maybe God trusted you the same way? Could it be that every storm you've weathered was heaven's way of saying, I know they won't break? Think of Oprah Winfrey, who was abused as a child and told she would never amount to anything. Today she stands as one of the most influential voices on the planet. Or Nelson Mandela, who was imprisoned for 27 years but emerged to lead South Africa into freedom. What about Steve Jobs, fired from his own company, humiliated, yet he returned and transformed the world? And Maya Angelou, who was mute for years after trauma, later became a voice that still echoes across generations. What if you realized that, like them, the enemy targeted you because he feared the roar that would one day rise from your silence? Chosen one, how many times have you looked into the mirror and asked, God, did you forget me? How many times did you watch your friends pass away, your body weaken, your finances vanish, and think, am I still valuable? That isn't age talking, that's warfare. The enemy's oldest trick is to convince you that your season is over, that no one wants to hear your voice, that your prayers are just echoes in an empty room. But Isaiah 46:4 promises, even to your old age and grey hairs I am he who will sustain you. Do you feel that? That isn't just comfort, that's a declaration of war against every lie that said you're too old to be used by God. Moses was 80 when he was called to free a nation. Abraham was 99 when God fulfilled his promise through Isaac. Anna was 84 when she proclaimed the arrival of the Messiah in the temple. Caleb was 85 when he boldly declared, "Give me this mountain." Joshua 14:12. How can you still believe you're too old when every story God writes is proof that age is an amplifier, not a limiter? Every wrinkle on your face is a badge of spiritual honor. Every gray hair is a medal of survival. Every limp in your walk is a testimony that you're still moving forward even when it hurts. 2 Corinthians 4:16 reminds us, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. Do you see it now? You've been in the refiner's fire, not the garbage heap. Malachi 3:3 says, he will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. What felt like you being burned alive was actually God removing every impurity so you can reflect his image more clearly to a world desperate for authenticity. That crushing grief when your spouse died, it wasn't punishment, it was preparation for you to comfort those who will walk through similar valleys. When your health crumbled, it wasn't abandonment, it was God teaching you to draw from a deeper well of his strength. Your story isn't just a collection of tragedies, it's a divine curriculum. Each heartbreak was a classroom. Each betrayal was a lesson in forgiveness. Each loss was a lecture in resurrection power. Romans 8:28 promises, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Chosen one, hear me with your spirit as much as with your ears. Your deepest pain was not a curse, it was the very womb where your greatest power was conceived. That suffocating depression that nearly took you out in your 40s. It didn't just happen to destroy you, it carved a well of compassion so deep that now you can sense the silent cries of others drowning in the same darkness. Have you ever noticed how quickly you can spot someone else's hidden pain? That's no accident, that's your spiritual X-ray vision, refined through your own midnight battles. That season of financial ruin, when you were forced to eat beans and rice day after day, it was heaven's crash course in radical dependence, so you could stand as a living testimony that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, Psalm 23:1. When the betrayal came, the kind that shattered your heart into shards so fine you thought you'd never feel whole again, it wasn't to leave you bleeding forever. It taught you to love others with a supernatural grace, to forgive when no one else would, because you know firsthand what it feels like to be forsaken. Can I ask you something deeply personal? How many times did you think the enemy was winning? How many times did you sit on the edge of your bed staring into the darkness, convinced that your story was over? But what if I told you the enemy wasn't ending your story, he was unwillingly helping God shape it? The enemy thought he was breaking you, but God was making you. The enemy believed he was closing your book, but God was just writing a new, more glorious chapter. Do you know what terrifies hell about you? It's not your youth or your physical strength. It's the fact that you've been through fire that would have incinerated others, yet you stand here today more unshakable than ever. It's that you have walked through the valley of the shadow of death and come out declaring, "I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Psalm 23:4. It's that you've learned to trust God in the midnight hour when no one was watching. That kind of tested, scarred and seasoned faith is a lethal weapon against darkness. Type it in your heart, and if you feel led, write it below. My pain has purpose, because it does. And if you've emerged from the flames still standing, let the world know your survival wasn't random. It was a signpost, a prophetic marker pointing others to hope. Now listen carefully. The 11th of July 2025 is not just a date on a calendar. It's a divine alarm clock. It's the moment when everything God has been meticulously building in you through decades of hardship, loss and resilience finally activates. You've been in a long season of refining, but the furnace is about to cool. The test is almost over. Are you ready to step into the revelation of why you had to endure all that pain? Can you dare to believe that every tear, every sleepless night, every unanswered question was actually weaving the garment of your destiny? This isn't merely a message, beloved. This is a spiritual threshold, a doorway you're being invited to cross. I meet so many elders who whisper to me in tear-streaked confession, "I think I missed it. God must be finished with me." And my spirit wants to shout from the rooftops, "Are you serious? You think the God who breathed stars into existence would abandon you because of a few gray hairs? You think the Ancient of Days is limited by your age spots and arthritis?" Listen deeply. The 11th of July 2025 is not a warning of doom, it's a holy checkpoint. It's a divine appointment, a cosmic yes, echoing from eternity into your timeline, calling you to awaken. It's heaven's reminder that while society might have filed you away, heaven has kept your file on the front desk all along. Think of Moses, 80 years old when God told him to confront Pharaoh and deliver a nation. Exodus 7:7 records it clearly. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. Can you imagine? While the world would have handed him a retirement watch, God handed him a staff of miracles. Abraham, he was 100 when Isaac arrived, the child of promise he had nearly stopped believing for. Genesis 21:5 says, Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Do you think God was late, or was he waiting for Abraham's faith to reach a maturity that could steward a generational promise? And what about Anna the prophetess? Luke 2:36 through 37 tells us she was 84, praying and fasting daily in the temple. People probably thought she was just a fragile old woman, a fixture to be pitied. But when Mary and Joseph brought in baby Jesus, Anna's spirit leaped with recognition before anyone else. Her years weren't wasted, they were consecrated. Even Caleb at 85 boldly declared, "Give me this mountain." Joshua 14:12. Do you see the divine irony? Age wasn't their disqualification, it was their final preparation. God knew they could handle the weight of his promises because they had endured the furnace of time. So, chosen one, do you see what God is whispering to you? Just because you've seen many sunsets doesn't mean your dawn is over. It means God trusted you with endurance beyond what the young can fathom. Your wisdom, your scars, your tears, they are your divine credentials. And this is where it gets deeply personal. This is where the 11th of July 2025 stops being a general message and becomes your specific divine appointment. Are you ready to find out why God kept you alive, sustained you, and carried you through valleys you thought would bury you? Are you ready to discover that your greatest work, your loudest roar, and your deepest joy might still be ahead? How many of you chosen ones are sitting there right now, staring at your reflection and thinking, I wasted so many years, I made so many mistakes, I should have done more, been more, achieved more? How many of you look at those lines on your face and see them as marks of failure instead of battle scars that testify you were a warrior? How many of you have allowed the world, with all its shallow standards and fleeting trends, to convince you that your best days are behind you, that your relevance has expired and your story has already been written? Stop. Just stop that narrative right now. Take a breath. Do you really think the God who knit you together in your mother's womb would keep you breathing just to watch you fade into insignificance? You want to know why you survived the divorce, the bankruptcy, the betrayal, the endless nights of silent tears. You want to know why you're still here when so many who looked stronger, healthier, and more successful are no longer standing? It's because God has been preparing you for a divine moment. July 11th, 2025. This date isn't about you marching out to change the whole world overnight. The world doesn't need another loud, flashy, young revolutionary who's never had their heart shattered. The world is crying out for weathered souls, chosen ones who have been crushed and yet continue to worship, people who have been broken and mended by the gentle hands of the Master. The world is starving for authenticity, for voices that tremble not because they are weak, but because they carry the thunder of heaven behind them. July 11th, 2025 will not suddenly flip the axis of the earth, but it will flip the axis of your spirit. When you step into the fullness of who God has called you to be, the you that's been hidden behind disappointment and fear, everything around you will begin to shift. Your children will notice a new authority in your words. Your neighbors will see a glow that can't be explained. Even strangers will sense a weight of glory on you. And when they ask, "What happened to you?" you'll smile knowingly, because on that day the version of you that the world dismissed but heaven protected finally stood up. This isn't for tomorrow. It's not for next week or next year. It is for right now. Can you feel the urgency? The enemy has spent decades weaving lies into your mind. You're too old. You're too tired. You've missed your chance. But Proverbs 16:31 says, "Gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained in the way of righteousness. Every silver strand is a divine medal of honor. Every wrinkle is a roadmap of God's unfailing faithfulness. Every trial survived is proof that your assignment is far from over." Psalm 92:14 declares, "They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green." Did you catch that? Fresh and green, not withered, not obsolete, not forgotten. God's promise is that your spirit remains vibrant and fruitful, even as your body ages. Have you been believing the lie that you're finished, or will you dare to believe that your greatest fruit is still ripening? But let me tell you the truth you must grasp. This awakening isn't automatic. It requires a decision. You have to stop co-signing the enemy's contract over your life and start signing your name to heaven's covenant. Will you finally agree with the voice that says you are not done, you're just getting started? July 11th, 2025 is not an accident on a calendar. It is a date written in eternity, designed to resurrect the version of you that prays with unstoppable authority, that loves with scandalous mercy, that speaks unfiltered truth with no concern for human approval. It's the version of you that's been forged in the fires of loss and loneliness, yet stands unmovable and full of grace. Think about Abraham, 100 years old when his promised son was born, Genesis 21:5. Imagine if he had believed his season was over. Or Anna, the prophetess who at 84 was the first to proclaim Jesus as Messiah, Luke 2:36-38. Consider how these elders weren't just relevant, they were critical in revealing God's glory. What if you are next in line? So right now, and I mean right now, I want you to do something that may feel awkward, but it will mark the start of your new chapter. Close your eyes, silence the noise around you, look up toward heaven and whisper from the deepest part of your soul, "God, I'm ready to be used again. I'm ready to stop hiding. I'm ready to stop making excuses. Use me for whatever time I have left." This isn't just a moment. It's a doorway into a completely new era of your life. That simple, raw, honest prayer will echo into the next 30 years, shifting everything around you and within you. Because July 11th, 2025 is not the final page of your story. It's the explosive preface to your most powerful, impactful, and glorious chapter yet. Are you ready to cross that threshold? But chosen one, have you ever really stopped and asked yourself, what exactly is God calling me to do in this season? What does this great awakening look like on an ordinary Tuesday morning when you're drinking your coffee or standing in line at the pharmacy? You see, your enemy has never been the world, or the politicians, or even the devil himself in his obvious forms. Your greatest enemy has always been that silent, sly voice inside your head, the story you've been telling yourself in those quiet, hidden moments when no one else could hear. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've whispered it in the dark, perhaps so many times that it feels like your own voice. "I'm too old now. My prime is long gone. I'm too exhausted to start over. It's too late to matter. I'm too broken for God to use me. But what if I told you, and listen to me with your spirit wide open, that every single word of that story is a lie straight from the pit of hell? The narrative in your mind is not your authentic voice. It's the voice of defeat, carefully crafted to keep you small, hidden and muted. It's the same voice that told Moses he was too old and slow of speech at 80. It's the same voice that hissed to Abraham that his body was as good as dead and that he could never father nations at 99. It's the same voice that mocked Sarah, convincing her she was too worn out to birth the promised child at 90. But you know what? God always had the final word, didn't he? Chosen one, there's something the enemy knows about you that you've forgotten. Your so-called weaknesses are actually your divine weapons. Your age isn't a limitation, it's your authority badge. Your scars, they're not disqualifications, they're divine credentials. Your weariness isn't proof of defeat, it's evidence you've fought wars that others would have fled from. The world looks at a 70-year-old grandmother and thinks retirement. But God looks at her and sees a seasoned kingdom general, trained through years of heartbreak and triumph, now ready to move with fearless authority. The world sees wrinkled hands and calls them frail. Heaven sees those same hands as sacred instruments that have wiped tears, folded in prayer, and built spiritual legacies. You think you're in the sunset years of your life. Let me tell you a shocking truth. You're not standing under a sunset. You're watching the sunrise of your greatest assignment. The so-called golden years are not meant for rocking chairs and cruise ship buffets. They're designed for golden opportunities to plant seeds that will bear eternal fruit. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose." Did you see an expiration date in that verse? Neither did I. All things, every heartbreak, every failure, every missed opportunity, every painful waiting season, God has been weaving it together, preparing you for this very moment. But here's the heartbreaking part. While you've been living under a false story of limitation, there are souls perishing who need your truth. There are grandchildren who need the wisdom that only lives in your weathered spirit. There are communities crumbling who need your unwavering voice and your fierce prayers. You say you're too tired. Moses was weary when he lifted that staff and split the Red Sea. You think you're too old. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Joshua 14:12. You think it's too late. Abraham was 99 when God renewed his covenant with him. Sarah laughed at the idea of new life at 90, and yet she held the promise in her arms. Do you see the pattern? Do you feel the heartbeat of heaven echoing through these stories? You are not a retiree drifting toward the grave. You are a secret weapon disguised as an elder. You are a prophet camouflaged in everyday life, releasing words that can set captives free. You are a modern-day Moses, assigned to lead souls out of invisible prisons they don't even realize they're in. The wisdom etched into your spirit didn't come from a classroom, it was carved out in the trenches. The peace you carry wasn't handed to you, it was wrestled from nights of screaming prayers into the dark. The faith you embody wasn't copied from a preacher, it was born from choosing to believe when every logical reason said give up. And now, after decades of divine preparation, you're telling me you're finished, that God spent 70 or 80 years sculpting you, only for you to spend your last chapters playing it safe, quietly fading into the background. The enemy has sold you a counterfeit retirement plan. Meanwhile, God has been crafting a revival plan. While the enemy whispers, slow down, heaven is roaring, accelerate. While the world suggests, step back, the Spirit declares, step forward. Every sunrise that greets you is heaven's billboard that your mission isn't over. Every breath in your lungs is a divine memo, I still need you on the field. Every heartbeat is a war drum, summoning you to charge, not retreat. You are not behind schedule, chosen one. You are not late, nor have you missed some mysterious deadline in the sky. You are arriving exactly when heaven ordained you to arrive. Can you feel that? The timing of your emergence isn't off, it's precise. This generation desperately needs what you carry, your unwavering stability in a chaotic world, your sharp wisdom in a sea of confusion, and your unshakable faith in the face of deep, choking doubt. They need to see someone who has been through the darkest nights and still comes out on the other side, hands lifted saying, God is good. Right now, I want you to do something radical, something that will terrify every demonic force that has ever dared to whisper in your ear. Say it with me, right where you are. I am not done. Did your voice quiver? Say it again, louder. I am not done. When you say that, hell trembles because it knows you're awakening. Heaven erupts in joy because it knows a warrior has stood up. The earth itself shifts under your feet because a chosen one is stepping into their rightful authority. But here's the question that will define everything in the chapters ahead. Will you keep listening to the limiting lies, or will you start obeying the voice that has been calling you from eternity? Those attacks on your life, they weren't random. They weren't a string of bad luck or cosmic accidents. They were a calculated assault on your voice, that sacred instrument God gave you to speak life, to declare His promises, to pull heaven down into impossible places. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? That soul-crushing moment when people you trusted, people you thought were supposed to nurture and champion you, turned around and told you your dreams were foolish. The church that should have empowered your gifts instead told you to be quiet and stay small. Your own family, the ones who should have seen your anointing first, mocked the fire God placed inside you. They didn't merely disagree. They dismantled you piece by piece, tearing at your confidence until you started to question if you ever heard God correctly at all. The most heartbreaking part, you stopped praying, not because you stopped believing, but because hope started to hurt more than silence. Have you ever felt that? That sick ache of wanting to hope, but being too scared of disappointment? Think of that woman in Mark 5. 12 long years of bleeding, 12 years of being declared unclean, 12 years of being pushed to the margins, silenced and forgotten. She didn't even have the strength to shout. She just crawled. She dragged her weary body through the crowd, past the very people who had spent years telling her she didn't belong. She didn't have words left. She didn't have grand prayers or bold declarations. All she had was a reach. But her silence wasn't a sign of defeat. It was the strategy before the miracle. It was the quiet before the storm of breakthrough. Her fingers brushing the hem of his garment was enough to trigger a healing that 12 years of doctors couldn't give her. Remember Elijah in 1 Kings 19, the prophet who called down fire from heaven, who confronted 450 prophets of Baal without flinching, and yet one threat from Jezebel sent him running into the wilderness, collapsing under a broom tree, crying out, "I am done, let me die here." Isn't it wild how one voice of opposition can make us forget every miracle we've experienced? But look at how God responded. He didn't scold Elijah for his honesty. He didn't shame him for his exhaustion. Instead, God fed him. God let him rest. God whispered to him. Then He gave him a new assignment, proving that even when you think you're finished, heaven has a fresh commission waiting. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Could it be that your lowest moments weren't evidence of God's abandonment but proof of His nearness? Look at Nelson Mandela, who emerged from 27 years of imprisonment, not with bitterness but with a vision that transformed a nation. Or consider Johnny Erickson Tada, paralyzed at 17, who turned her pain into a global ministry of hope. Think of Maya Angelou, who was silent for years after trauma, only to become one of the world's most powerful voices. And remember Louis Zamperini, an Olympic athlete turned war hero, who forgave his torturers and became a messenger of grace. Romans 8:37 reminds us, "In all these things we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us." You see, chosen one, the enemy tried to silence you because he feared what your voice would release into the earth. Your words carry heaven's frequency. Your prayers break generational curses. Your testimony shakes demonic strongholds. Some of you, chosen ones, stopped singing in church because a few misguided voices told you your sound wasn't polished enough, as if heaven needed perfection over passion. You stopped sharing your prophetic dreams because someone labeled you crazy, not realizing they were actually intimidated by your spiritual sight. You stopped believing that God could still use you because they convinced you that your past mistakes had permanently cancelled your future. You stopped laughing, the kind of deep belly laughter that shakes your soul. You stopped dreaming of impossible things. You stopped imagining that God still had something magnificent in store for you, not because you lost faith in God, but because the battle robbed you of your voice. They told you that at 65, 70, 75, your season was over. They sold you the lie that your purpose expired the moment your hair turned grey. They preached that God only chooses the young, the socially connected, the camera-ready, the flawless. But listen to me with your whole spirit right now. The silence wasn't proof that your calling ended. It was proof that your calling is real and dangerous to darkness. Why do you think the enemy worked overtime to silence you? Why do you think he orchestrated so many betrayals, heartbreaks, and humiliations? Because he knows what heaven deposited inside you. He knows that when you finally open your mouth and release the sound God planted in your bones, families will be restored, addictions will break, strongholds will collapse, and generations will be transformed. Your voice, when aligned with heaven, is a spiritual weapon of mass destruction against every force that stands against God's kingdom. That's why hell was so determined to keep you quiet. But here's the secret: the enemy didn't see coming. Silence is not always defeat. Sometimes it's divine strategy. The wilderness isn't a graveyard, it's a training ground. And sometimes God allows your voice to be temporarily silenced so he can refine it, deepen it, and empower it. Moses stammered and felt unqualified. Jeremiah claimed he was too young and lacked eloquence. Isaiah said he had unclean lips. God didn't need perfect orators, he needed surrendered vessels. You think your voice is too broken. God calls it seasoned. You think your words lack impact. Heaven is leaning forward, waiting for you to finally speak them. Sarah laughed at God's promise at 90. Her laughter became the seed of a nation. Genesis 21:6. Abraham left everything familiar at 75, trusting a God he could not see. Genesis 12:4. Caleb, at 85, didn't ask for a quiet ending but for a mountain filled with giants. Joshua 14:12. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your leverage. Your scars aren't your disqualifications, they are your holy credentials. Your season of silence wasn't punishment, it was preparation for your most powerful sound yet. And now July 11th, 2025 is rushing toward you like a holy freight train. God is declaring, it's time. Time to stop whispering when you were anointed to roar. Time to stop apologizing for visions that came straight from my throne. Time to stop allowing other people's insecurities to cage your calling. If this is stirring something deep inside of you, like a lightning bolt shattering old walls, don't hesitate. Don't analyze. Don't negotiate. Just respond. Whisper it out loud, even if your voice shakes, even if your heart pounds. I still have something to say. Beloved, your story isn't over. Your voice isn't broken. It's been purified in sacred fire. And now the world is starving to hear what God has whispered to you in your quietest, darkest hours. But the question that stands like a guard at the threshold is this: will you find the courage to use it? There's a room inside your spirit, chosen one. A hidden room you haven't dared enter for years. Right now, as you read these words, you can feel it stirring. I see you. You used to slip into that room late at night when the house was quiet, when your soul could finally breathe without judgment. You used to write sentences that carried the weight of heaven. You used to speak words that made people lean in, that made them pause, that made them weep, because they felt the pulse of God through your syllables. You used to believe, truly believe, that you were created for something eternal, something that would outlive your flesh, something that would echo across generations. But what happened to that fearless dreamer? I'll tell you what happened. Life happened. Disappointment knocked on your door so many times that you stopped answering. Promises were broken by people you trusted with your soul. Dreams you cradled like children died slow, suffocating deaths. And one day, you tiptoed into that sacred inner room, looked around at the dust-covered journals, the half-written letters, the forgotten ideas locked away in hidden drawers, and you whispered to yourself, maybe I was wrong, maybe I'm just ordinary, and with trembling hands and a heavy heart, you closed the door. But here's what breaks my heart, chosen one, and what you must understand deep in your spirit: God never left that room. While you've been living outside of yourself, surviving when you were meant to thrive, settling for crumbs when you were called to feast, shrinking when you were designed to stand tall, He stayed. He's been there all along, waiting for you to remember who you were before the world told you who to be, before disappointments and betrayals rewrote your story into something smaller and safer than God ever intended. Remember the widow in 2 Kings 4 who came to Elisha. Her husband was gone, her debts were crushing, and her sons were about to be sold into slavery. Desperation choked her voice as she cried, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and the creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." Have you ever felt that way? Like everything you worked for is vanishing before your eyes, like your legacy is slipping through your fingers, like you're too worn out, too broken, too late to make a difference anymore. Elisha asked her one simple but life-changing question. "What do you have in your house?" She answered, "Your servant has nothing there at all, except a small jar of olive oil." Nothing except. Those 2 words are a hinge on which destinies swing. Chosen one, what if I told you that what you keep calling nothing is actually everything God needs? That small jar of oil, that last glimmer of hope, that small whisper of faith, that one prayer you still manage to squeeze out through your tears, is exactly what God has been waiting to use. You've been inventorying your losses, tallying your failures, counting your empty shelves, but God has always seen the jar. He has always seen the sealed oil, the anointing that never ran out, the call that never expired. Right now, as these words meet you, there are gifts inside you that have been fermenting like the richest, most precious wine, becoming deeper, stronger, more potent. The 11th of July 2025 is not just a date on your calendar, it is heaven's announcement. Harvest time has arrived for the oil you thought was gone. But to experience it, you have to go back into that room. You have to open those dusty journals and remember the words you wrote when your heart was on fire and your prayers felt like thunder. You have to unlock those old drawers inside your spirit where dreams lie folded like forgotten letters. You have to look at your small jar of oil, that fragile faith, that spark of what if, that echo of destiny, and realize it never stopped burning. The widow poured her oil, and it multiplied until every vessel was filled to overflowing. Every empty jar became a testament to abundance. Every space of nothingness transformed into a reservoir of provision. What if I told you that every disappointment you faced was just an empty jar waiting to be filled? What if every heartbreak was God making space for a greater outpouring? What if every door that slammed shut was heaven setting the stage for you to stop knocking and start walking straight through walls? Do you think you're too old? Abraham was 75 when he left everything to follow an unseen promise. Genesis 12:4. Moses was 80 when he stood before Pharaoh with nothing but a staff and a God-given mandate. Exodus 7:7. Caleb was 85 when he demanded, "Give me this mountain," not a safe, quiet retirement, but the biggest, boldest battle left to fight. Joshua 14:12. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your advantage. Every wrinkle on your face is a line of sacred poetry written by God. Every scar on your heart is proof that you survived what was meant to kill you. Every gray hair is a shimmering crown, testifying that you have stood in storms that would have buried others. But you must choose to re-enter the room. Right now, yes, this very moment, put your hand on your chest, feel that heartbeat. That's not just your body sustaining you. That's the rhythm of a divine calling pulsing beneath your ribs. That's the echo of a purpose that never gave up on you, even when you gave up on it. Say this with me, out loud. God, I'm ready to remember the room. Again, louder this time, even if your voice cracks. God, I'm ready to remember the room. Those words, that single fierce declaration, have the power to reverse decades of silence. They can resurrect what shame tried to bury, awaken what fear tried to paralyze, unlock what the enemy tried to steal forever. The oil is still there, chosen one. The anointing is still fresh. The calling is still alive and roaring, waiting for you to open the door. And on the 11th of July 2025, that door won't just creak open, it will vanish entirely. Because you will no longer need to enter the room. You'll become the room. You'll live fully in the open, finally embodying every promise heaven has ever whispered over you. But here's the question you must answer with your whole heart. Will you return to that room? Or will you spend the rest of your days staring at the door, haunted by what could have been? Heaven is waiting, the world is starving, and your oil is ready. Will you pour it out? You've spent a lifetime being called things you were never meant to carry. Lazy, worthless, too old, too late. failure, disappointment, the black sheep, the one who never quite measured up. Those words didn't just pass by you, they pierced you. They wrapped themselves around your identity like chains, didn't they? Every dismissive comment, every cutting remark, every judgmental stare left invisible scars on your soul, and quietly, slowly, you began to believe them. But listen to me now, chosen one. Those names were never yours to begin with. You've been walking around wearing labels that don't belong to you, like heavy coats in summer heat, suffocating the very life God breathed into you. Here's what the world fails to understand about heaven's economy. God does not see you through the filter of your past mistakes or other people's opinions. He doesn't weigh your worth against report cards, performance reviews, or the harsh words of those who never knew your true heart. When God looks at you, He sees a name He personally wrote in His own handwriting before time itself began. Isaiah 43:1 says it with divine certainty, "I have called you by name, you are mine." Do you hear that finality? Not "I might call you if you do better," not "I'll consider it if you clean yourself up," but "I have called you," past tense, irrevocable, eternal. Think about this. While your mother was choosing between baby names and nursery paint colors, God was already declaring a name over you that would echo throughout the halls of eternity. While teachers scribbled red marks on your papers, heaven was writing your true identity in the book of life with ink that cannot be erased. God is so serious about names that He changes them to match His vision for your destiny. Abram became Abraham, from exalted father to father of many nations, Genesis 17:5. Jacob, the deceiver, became Israel, one who struggles with God and prevails, Genesis 32:28. Saul, the fierce persecutor of Christians, became Paul, the fiery apostle to the Gentiles. When God changes your name, He isn't just giving you a title, He's revealing the hidden identity that has always been inside you. But here's what keeps me up at night, praying with tears for people just like you. You've been wearing someone else's name tag for so long that you've forgotten the golden scroll where your real name was written by God's hand. Maybe it was your father who said you'd never amount to anything, his voice echoing through the decades. Maybe it was that third-grade teacher who called you slow, and you've been running to prove her wrong ever since. Maybe it was an ex-spouse who called you unlovable, leaving you wondering if love was ever real. Maybe it was your own children who, in their moments of ignorance or anger, made you feel like a burden in the years meant for your honor. Those voices became so loud, so constant, that you stopped listening for the gentle whisper of heaven. But can you feel it right now? That subtle stirring in your chest as you read these words? That's not nostalgia. That's your spirit recognizing its true name. I need you to grasp this truth so deeply it shakes every lie loose. Every cruel name they threw at you was a strategic lie from hell, designed to keep you from discovering who you really are. The enemy knew that if you ever heard your name the way heaven speaks it, strong, radiant, chosen, beloved, you would become unstoppable. You would become a force that shakes His kingdom to the core. So He orchestrated a lifetime of broken relationships, betrayals, and criticisms to keep you small, quiet, and caged in shame. But hear me clearly, July 11th, 2025 is the day that lie dies. You are not forgotten, chosen one. You are not a random file in heaven's cabinet. You are engraved. Isaiah 49:16 declares, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." Engraved, not scribbled in pencil that can be erased, not typed on a screen that can be deleted, but carved deep into the eternal flesh of the Son of God. Imagine that for a moment. Every time Jesus lifts His hands to bless, your name is right there. Every time He reaches out to heal the broken, He sees your name. Every time He intercedes at the right hand of the Father, He looks at the scars where your name is engraved and whispers your destiny with fierce love. And you're worried about what your neighbor thinks of you. You're silencing your gifts because of an old wound or a careless comment. You're holding back because of a label that was never yours. Think of Joni Eareckson Tada, paralyzed at 17, yet now a global voice of hope and healing. Think of Nelson Mandela, called a criminal and traitor before he became a father to a nation. Consider Oprah Winfrey, labeled unworthy and rejected early in her career, who rose to become one of the most influential voices of our time. Think of Moses, once a murderer hiding in the desert, who became the deliverer of a nation when he answered to the name God gave him. You are more than the names you've been given. You are more than the mistakes you've made. You are who God says you are, and heaven has never for 1 second forgotten your name. July 11th, 2025 isn't just a date, it's a divine renaming ceremony. The day you tear off every false label, throw away every counterfeit identity, and finally stand in the fullness of your true name, the name that's been echoing in heaven since before you were born. Let me tell you something today that will shake every chain off your spirit, that name they called you in high school. It's not in the book, that label your family put on you that still echoes in your mind when you lie awake at night. Heaven doesn't recognize it. That identity crisis you've carried like an invisible shroud for decades. It's time to exchange it for the unchanging truth of who you really are. Right now, chosen one, I want you to do something radical and prophetic. I want you to whisper your true name, the name that makes your spirit leap, and if you dare, type it in the comments. Not what they called you in your weakest moments, not the birth name tied to pain and generational curses, but the name that feels like coming home, the name that makes your soul sing because it has always been whispered over you by heaven. Maybe it's beloved, maybe it's chosen, maybe it's warrior or overcomer or faithful one, or maybe for the first time ever, you'll hear it as you speak it. Your spirit will recognize it instantly, like hearing your mother's voice calling you in the dark. Because here's what I know with every fiber of my being. The 11th of July 2025 is not just another date. It's the day heaven stops whispering and starts shouting your real name across every spiritual realm. And when you finally hear it clearly, you'll understand why the enemy fought tooth and nail to keep you confused, ashamed and silent all these years. The question isn't whether God knows your name. He's always known. The question is, are you finally ready to answer when he calls it? What breaks my heart isn't your failures, your missed chances, or the betrayals that shattered your trust. What truly devastates me is that you think you're finished. You think because you're 70 or 80 or 90, because your body moves slower, your bones ache, your hair has turned silver, that your fire is gone. But listen to me now, chosen one. That ache in your chest at 3 a.m., that stirring when a song plays and you feel something ignite deep inside you, that bittersweet ache when you remember the dreams you shelved long ago, that's not nostalgia. That is proof the fire never died. It's been smoldering, waiting for your yes. The enemy's greatest weapon isn't to convince you that you're worthless. It's to convince you that you're done, that God has moved on, that you've missed your moment. But let me remind you, Moses didn't hear his call until he was 80. Abraham didn't receive the full promise until he was 100. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she finally saw the Messiah she had been waiting for all her life. God doesn't operate on human schedules. He doesn't consult your pension plan or retirement age. He doesn't read your medical reports before he decides to move. The very fact that you are reading these words right now is proof that your flame is not extinguished. It's being fanned into a roaring blaze. You think Moses' 40 years in the desert were wasted. Those silent, lonely nights were God's boot camp. Every rejection trained him in humility. Every sheep he shepherded taught him patience. Every sunrise in the wilderness was God whispering, soon. And when the time came, that fire in his bones split the Red Sea. Chosen one, every heartbreak you thought would bury you was God digging deeper wells of living water inside you. Every silent year was oil collecting in your jar. Every season of seeming inactivity was God stoking a fire no enemy could snuff out. Under your ashes of disappointment, an ember glows. Beneath the weight of your regrets, a flame flickers. Beneath the world's indifference, a raging inferno waits. You're not burned out, you're being reignited. Even now, as you breathe these words in, can you feel it? That tremor in your chest? That isn't mere emotion. That is the Holy Spirit breathing life into the coals that have been waiting, hidden, guarded. Isaiah 61:3 says, He gives beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Notice it doesn't say He gives you a brand new fire. He revives the one that survived every storm, every betrayal, every valley. You survived that divorce that almost destroyed your sense of self. The fire lived. You buried your spouse, your parents, your dreams. The fire lived. You lost businesses, friendships, health, faith communities, and still the fire lived. If it lived through all of that, why would you believe it's going out now? The world sees your grey hair and labels you old. God sees a crown of wisdom and battle-won glory. The world calls it limitation. God calls it the perfect setup for his power. The world assumes you're at your final chapter. God is flipping the page to the beginning of your greatest story yet. But understand this deeply. July 11th, 2025 is not about time passing. It's about heaven's divine now. It's God's declaration. Now is when I use every moment you thought was wasted. Now is when the fire you thought had died becomes a wildfire that will spread revival. You think you're too old to start. Tell that to the woman who started a global business at 75. Tell that to the man who ran his first marathon at 80 and inspired a city. Tell that to Grandma Moses, who picked up a paintbrush at 78 and left a legacy that still inspires generations. And tell that to Caleb, who at 85 said, "Give me this mountain, not a quiet pasture, not a peaceful retreat, but a giant-filled wild mountain." Tell that to Joshua, who fought his greatest battles in his 70s. Tell that to John, exiled on Patmos at over 90, who received the greatest revelation of Christ that shapes the entire church today. So I ask you now, chosen one, what will you do with the fire that still lives? What will you do with the true name heaven has been calling you since before you took your first breath? Will you keep whispering your regrets, or will you roar your destiny? Because July 11th, 2025 isn't just another day on the calendar. It's the day your real name becomes your new reality. Are you ready to answer? The fire burning inside you, chosen one, isn't just personal, it's generational. It was never meant to simply keep you warm, it was meant to light a path for everyone who would come after you. This flame isn't just for your healing or your breakthrough, it's for your children, your grandchildren, for neighbors, and for people you'll never even meet. They need to witness, through your life, that it is never too late to burn bright. You are not the fading sunset the world tries to call you. You are the sunrise of something this world has never seen before, something the heavens have been waiting to release through you. So here's what I need you to do right now, no matter how impossible it feels. I don't care if you're sitting in a wheelchair, if your knees ache like they've carried mountains, or if people are staring at you from across the room. Stand up. Yes, stand up wherever you are, and with every ounce of courage in your bones, declare these words out loud. The fire lives in me, and it's not done burning. This isn't just an emotional moment. This isn't spiritual theater. This is deliverance. This is truth. This is your activation into the next chapter of your destiny. Because on the 11th of July, 2025, God is calling his chosen ones out of hiding. No more keeping your fire under the bushel of age. No more snuffing it out under the blanket of societal expectation. No more burying it beneath the ashes of self-doubt. The world is about to witness what happens when the fire that never went out is finally given permission to burn openly and wildly. Are you ready to give it that permission? You've already walked through the doorway. You've felt the flame flicker back to life. You've heard your name echo through the secret chambers of your heart. And right now, that flame is burning brighter, isn't it? You feel it pulsing in your veins, don't you? But hear me, this is not the end of your journey. It is only the beginning of your true mission. If you are still breathing, if your heart still thunders inside your chest, if you can hear my words at this very moment, then your mission is still alive and urgent. And I need you to understand something that might shatter every limitation you've ever believed. You don't need another prophetic word. You are the prophecy. Think about that. Every gray hair, every wrinkle, every scar that testifies of battles fought and survived, these are not evidence of decline. These are the marks of your authority. You've been refined in the fire. You've been tested over time. You've been prepared meticulously for this very hour. But here's what truly breaks my heart. I see too many of you, radiant elders, convinced that your season has passed. You've been told to move aside, to let the young ones take the stage, to fade gracefully into the background. The world, in its shallow wisdom, has whispered that your experience is irrelevant, that your voice is outdated, that your wisdom no longer carries weight. That is a lie straight from the pit of hell. Listen carefully. Your grandchildren are crying out for a lighthouse. They are drowning in a sea of confusion, bombarded by shallow voices that promise everything but deliver nothing. They don't need another influencer. They need an anchor. They need to see someone who remembers what real faith, real perseverance, real strength looks like. They need you. Your neighborhood is waiting. There are people 3 doors down from you, wearing smiles in the daylight but crying themselves to sleep every night. They need your testimony. They need to know it's possible to walk through hell and still stand up praising God. Your purpose is pacing the halls of eternity, growing impatient, waiting for you to stop negotiating with your fears and start stepping into what God carved out for you before you even took your first breath. Do you remember Lazarus? 4 days in the tomb. Everyone said it was too late. The stench, the finality, the hopelessness, all of it screamed, "It's over." But Jesus stood at that tomb and declared 2 words that shattered the grave. "Come forth." That is what God is speaking over you right now. You have been wrapped in the grave clothes of "I'm too old. My time has passed. No one wants to hear me anymore." But today, I hear the Lord's voice thundering through your tomb of silence. Come forth. Come out of the darkness of thinking you are finished. Come out of the burial clothes of believing your best days are behind you. Come out of the self-dug grave that society told you to crawl into. When Jesus calls your name, death cannot hold you. Do you want to know why the 11th of July 2025 matters? Because it is your resurrection day. It is the moment you stop allowing others to dictate your expiration date. It is the day you remember that Moses confronted Pharaoh at 80, that Sarah laughed her way into a promise at 90, that Caleb claimed his greatest battle at 85. Age didn't disqualify them, it crowned them. The enemy has been relentless in telling you that your voice is obsolete, that your wisdom is no longer needed, that your time has slipped through your fingers like sand. But do you know why he fights so hard? Because he knows what you've forgotten. One voice, seasoned by decades of intimacy with God, can topple an army of shallow opinions. One life, authentically lived in faith, can ignite 1,000 others. One elder, stepping fully into their true identity, makes hell itself tremble. The world doesn't need another loud voice screaming into the void. It doesn't need more noise. It needs one holy voice, a voice that remembers exactly who it is, a voice that has been shaped by decades of tears, laughter, failures, and victories, a voice that has survived the fires and now carries the authority of heaven itself. Chosen one, look at what you've survived. You've seen wars rage and peace break. You've weathered financial storms that would have crushed weaker souls. You've buried dear friends, held trembling hands as they took their last breaths. You've raised children, perhaps even grandchildren, watched them rise and fall and kept your faith steady through it all. You haven't just accumulated years, you've accumulated spiritual authority, the kind that only comes through deep, enduring testing. Now, hear this. God is saying to you what he said to Jeremiah in Jeremiah 1:7. Do not say, "I am too young," or "I am too old." You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you. God didn't ask for perfection, he asked for obedience. Your mission was never retirement. Your mission is a commissioning. Even now, you are being knighted in the invisible kingdom of heaven. Can you feel it? That holy weight pressing onto your shoulders, that warmth rising in your chest, like a fresh flame igniting in an old fireplace. That's the Holy Spirit declaring that your time is not over, it's only just beginning. This is your moment to stop apologizing for the space you occupy. It's time to stop asking for permission to speak when heaven has already given you the mic. It's time to stop whispering your wisdom in private and start declaring it with kingdom authority. This is your season to step boldly, to occupy every inch of spiritual territory God has assigned to you, and to do it without fear. But now you have a choice. Heaven is watching. The angels are leaning forward. The cloud of witnesses who have gone before you are standing, cheering, and God himself is waiting for your response. If you're ready to step out of the grave of silence, if you're ready to throw off the burial clothes of self-doubt and smallness, if you're ready to embrace the mission that has been waiting for you since before you were born, then do it now, not tomorrow. not when you feel more prepared. Type, "I accept the mission" right now. This is your resurrection moment. This is your come forth moment. The stone is already rolled away. The tomb is empty. What are you waiting for? As we approach the close of this sacred moment together, I want to leave you with 3 eternal truths that will anchor you in the coming days. First, the 11th of July 2025 is not just a day on a calendar, it's your divine appointment. The door is wide open, the fire is burning hot, and your mission is standing ready. You are not too old, not too late, and certainly not forgotten. Second, that's stirring deep in your spirit right now. That's not wishful thinking. That is the Holy Spirit confirming what heaven has always known about you. You were chosen before the foundation of the world, refined through every test, every heartbreak, every waiting room, and positioned precisely for this moment in history. Third, the voice that has been calling you all through this message, that same voice spoke light into the darkness, calmed raging seas, and called Lazarus out of the grave. When that voice calls your name, mountains move, valleys rise, and what once seemed impossible suddenly becomes inevitable. But know this above all else: you are not walking alone. God has not brought you this far to leave you stranded now. Even when the journey gets dark, even when your knees tremble and your heart wonders if you can keep going, remember that the same God who parted the Red Sea is parting ways for you today. And you are not alone in the natural either. You have a family here, a community of believers who are rising beside you, standing in faith with you, cheering you on as you reclaim every promise spoken over your life. We are all part of something far greater than ourselves, something eternal and unshakable. Before I release you into this new season, I must ask you one final soul-piercing question. When you stand before the throne of God one day, and He asks you, "What did you do with the mission I gave you on the 11th of July 2025? What will you say? Will you tell Him you were too afraid, too tired, too old? Or will you look Him in the eyes and say, "Lord, I said yes. I stepped forward. I fulfilled the purpose you breathed into me before time began"? Right now, wherever you are, bow your head with me. Let me pray over you with the authority of someone who has walked with God through valleys and mountaintops and seen His faithfulness in every season. Heavenly Father, I lift up every chosen one under the sound of my voice. You know their names better than they know themselves. You know their silent battles, their hidden scars, their secret prayers. Father, place your mighty hand upon them right now. Let them feel your love flooding every part of their being, a love deeper than their failures, stronger than every storm, and wider than every chasm of doubt. Lord, break every chain that has kept them bound. Heal every wound time could not touch. Restore every dream that disappointment buried. Give them strength for the journey ahead, wisdom for every decision, and courage to speak boldly when you call. I pray over their families, bring unity where there is division, healing where there is sickness, abundance where there has been lack, and peace where there has been chaos. God, I ask that every person listening would step forward today, knowing that you go before them, you stand beside them, and you have already prepared their path. Let them walk out their mission with joy, with confidence, and with a holy fire that will light up the world. In the mighty, matchless name of Jesus, Amen. Now, beloved, before you close this video, I want you to do something simple yet deeply powerful. In the comments below, share just one word that captures how you're feeling right now. Don't overanalyze it, just let your spirit speak. It might be renewed, alive, hopeful, called, or something entirely unexpected. That one word is your banner today, and this beautiful community will gather around it to pray, encourage, and lift you higher. If this message has stirred something deep inside you, if you felt God's breath moving through every word, awakening places in your spirit you thought were long asleep, please share this video with someone else. You might be the divine messenger God uses to call forth another chosen one who has been waiting for a sign, for a voice, for a heavenly nudge like this. If you have questions, doubts, or simply need prayer, don't hold back. Reach out in the comments. This isn't just a video. This is a family, a sanctuary of warriors and worshippers who will stand with you in faith. You're never alone on this journey. We are here, shoulder to shoulder, spirit to spirit, marching forward together. Thank you from the depths of my heart for spending this sacred time with me today. Thank you for showing up with an open heart, for listening beyond the words, for receiving the call that God placed on your life before you were even born. Your willingness to stay with me all the way to this moment tells me everything I need to know about you, that you are ready, that you are hungry, and that you are chosen. If this message blessed you and you feel led, I invite you to support this ministry through a super thanks donation. It helps us continue creating and spreading these prophetic messages all around the world. But hear me clearly, whether you choose to give or not, you are deeply loved and appreciated. Your presence, your prayers, and your engagement mean more than words can express. If you haven't yet, please make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Every week, we release messages specifically crafted to strengthen, encourage, and equip God's chosen ones like you. You belong here. This is your spiritual family, and we're honored to walk alongside you. Remember, Chosen One, the 11th of July 2025 is not just a date. It's your divine appointment. Your mission is waiting, and the one who called you is faithful to finish what he began. Until we meet again, walk boldly in the authority of your calling. Rest deeply in the certainty of his love, and remember always, your best days aren't behind you. They are just now beginning. The mission still stands, and so do you. May God bless you abundantly, beloved. May his face shine upon you. May his favor surround you like a shield, and may his joy be your constant strength. Go forth and shine. You were born for this.